Welcome to the channel Myths and Legends. Today we once again dive into the amazing and mysterious world of Norse mythology. Among the many mythical beings closely connected to supernatural forces, Draugr hold a special place. These are the reanimated dead, endowed with incredible strength and supernatural abilities. In this episode we will discuss who Draugr are, what their abilities were, who could become one of these beings, and why they were denied entry to Valhalla after death. In ancient Norse mythology, a Draug or Draugr is a sinister reanimated corpse that has gained a second life after death, retaining its strength and acquiring abilities that significantly exceed those of ordinary humans. These beings return to the world of the living to roam the earth and sow fear. The original form of the word is pronounced as Draugr, but later in Old Norse, Danish, and Swedish it began to be simply recorded as Draug. The literal translation of this term is again wandering, which in English translations is often replaced by the word walker. In Norse mythology, Draugr are often described as guardians of burial mounds, protecting treasures buried with their bodies. However, some legends tell that Draugr could leave their tombs under the cover of night and cause real terror among people, jumping across rooftops and making terrifying sounds. The fear of these living dead was exceedingly great in medieval Scandinavia and Iceland, as evidenced by numerous protective charms engraved with runes on amulets of that time. Equally intriguing are the inscriptions found on gravestones, which aim to keep the Draugr in its tomb and prevent it from rising again. This theme frequently appears in Icelandic sagas, underscoring its importance in northern folklore. In these texts, the Draugr is portrayed not merely as a mindlessly wandering body like a zombie, but as a being with intellect and purpose. Unlike zombies, which are driven only by insatiable hunger, Draugr have complex thoughts and can plan. Their actions are often motivated by a thirst for revenge, envy of the living, or a desire to protect their treasures, making them much more dangerous. In some cases, a strong will and dark intentions could return a spirit to a dead body. This was not done lightly. Sometimes people found that reviving a Draugr was beneficial. For instance, sorcerers used these reanimated corpses for their purposes, whether for predicting the future or seeking revenge on enemies. Through special rituals and spells spoken at the grave, magicians could summon the spirit of the deceased back, turning it into a Draugr. However, killing a walking dead was extremely difficult. According to Icelandic legends, ordinary steel weapons could harm the body of a Draugr. But this was not enough for its ultimate destruction. To rid oneself of this reanimated being forever, it had to be defeated at its burial site. After this, the corpse had to be beheaded, burned, and the ashes scattered over the sea. Only then could one guarantee that the Draugr would not return to the world of the living. Draugr dwell in their graves and mounds where they were buried after death. The presence of these beings can be identified by the appearance of unusual mushrooms that emit a faint light known as false fire. Draugr retain not only the physical abilities they possessed in life but also human intellect, which makes them particularly dangerous. In Norse mythology, the undead could take revenge on those who wronged or harmed them in life, indicating that Draugr retained memories of the past. They were also attributed various magical abilities. Draugr could not only predict the weather and the future but also send diseases to entire villages. Moreover, they possessed the gift of transformation into any animal, making them virtually elusive both on land and at sea. Practically immortal, these beings confidently used their powers to achieve their goals and instilled fear among the living. In Scandinavian legends, Draugr were not limited to guarding their mounds and treasures. They also raided livestock, jumped across rooftops, instilling fear in the inhabitants, and ambushed solitary travelers. The appearance of a Draugr is directly related to the condition of its body after death. The risen dead looked exactly as they were buried. Northeastern European folklore divides Draugr into two types: those who dwell on land and sea Draugr that appear after death in water. Drowned individuals had bluish-purple skin covered in wrinkles, with their skin hanging in tatters like long submerged bodies. Warriors who fell in battle retained signs of wounds and blood, their skin pale blue, a reminder that they were dead. Most often their bodies were in a state of decay, emitting a disgusting odor. However, despite their partially decomposed state, many Draugr became enormous in size, and although their weight was significant, it did not hinder their movement or strength. The immense physical strength that Draugr possessed allowed them to easily open coffin lids, climb tall buildings, and terrify those around them. They could attack animals and, like vampires, drink their blood. According to beliefs, it was possible to predict in advance whether a person would return after death in the form of a Draugr. If the body in the grave lay not horizontally but stood vertically or sat, it was a clear sign that the deceased would rise. Although many Draugr myths were outcasts or criminals in life, practically anyone could become a reanimated corpse. It was enough to possess certain negative character traits, even if minor. In medieval Scandinavia, it was believed that anyone who was full of malice, aggression, or uncontrollable rage in life could return as a Draugr after death to continue spreading destruction. When a villain died, they were not always satisfied with the prospect of going to the afterlife. Some of these dead returned to the world of the living against the natural order. An animated Draugr, by killing its victim, not only deprived them of life but also condemned them to eternal wandering. If a person or animal perished at the hands of a Draugr, they too could rise as a new Draugr, becoming part of this vicious cycle. To prevent the deceased from turning into a Draugr, special branches and flowers with protective power were placed among their belongings. Open iron scissors were often placed on the grave to block the way of the dead. The toes of the deceased were tied together, and steel needles were driven into their feet to prevent them from walking should they decide to rise. In Iceland, there was another ritual. The coffin was lifted from the grave 3 times and lowered 3 times, turning it in different directions of the compass. This ritual served as an additional precaution to ensure the deceased could not return to life. This ritual was aimed at confusing the Draugr and preventing it from finding its way back to the living. In early medieval Denmark, there was a special practice that later spread throughout Scandinavia. According to this tradition, to remove a body from the house, a temporary door was made in one of the walls. After the deceased was carried out through it, this door was either sealed up or completely dismantled. It was believed that a Draugr could only return to the living by the path that was taken out of the house, and by eliminating this exit, it lost the chance to return. In northern Norway, legends of sea Draugr, who were transformed drowned sailors, were preserved until the 20th century. These beings resembled humans but had heads covered with seaweed, or according to another version, they had no heads at all and moved on half a boat that carried them across the sea. An interesting fact, the coat of arms of one of the Norwegian villages depicts half a fishing boat, which may refer to ancient legends about sea Draugr. Later tales tell of a variety of these beings that enchanted sailors, causing them to leap off cliffs or accidentally fall from heights. This intensified the fear of sea Draugr among coastal residents. It is also worth noting a curious coincidence. Although the words dragon and Draugr do not share a common origin, dragons frequently appear in Scandinavian sagas, essentially fulfilling the same role as Draugr. These mythical creatures guarded their treasures and harbored deep hatred for humans. One of the most famous dragons is Fafnir, who was defeated by the legendary hero Sigurd. As for why Draugr did not enter Valhalla, there are several versions. One suggests that their inability to find peace after death is linked to their bitterness, as Valhalla only accepts those who fell in battle with honor. When it comes to a Draugr who was a warrior in life, it is important to note a key detail. The number of Einherjar entering Valhalla is strictly limited. The Poetic Edda provides direct indication in this regard. During Ragnarok, Odin will lead his army into battle, and through each of the 540 doors of Valhalla, 800 Einherjar will pass, totaling 432,000 warriors. Although this does not mean that Valhalla cannot accommodate more fallen warriors, it is clear that not everyone who died on the battlefield was honored with a place in Odin's halls. Probably only the most valiant warriors deserved this place. On the other hand, one could assume that Draugr, like other undead, were perceived by the ancient Scandinavians as lower-order beings, whose place was in ordinary burial mounds rather than in divine halls. With that, our episode comes to an end. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to stay updated on new videos. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. It's very important to us. Thank you for watching Myths and Legends. Until next time.